Hey guys, welcome to Walking Boxing. It is Wednesday, February the 5th, 2025. I think it's the 5th. I'm sure someone will correct me if that's wrong. I think it's the 5th. What was the other? Yes, it is the 5th today. Got to just count back on my head back to Monday. It's great here today. The cool change has set in, which is great. Last few days have been very, very uncomfortable. In the high 30s. We've got 23 degrees today, and it's only about 13 or something at the moment. It's about 5 to 8 in the morning. So yeah, very, very welcome to us here in Victoria. It's been bloody hot the last few days. Anyway, on to the boxing stuff. And one man dominated the world news yesterday, and his name was Canelo Alvarez. For good and bad reasons. I'm really happy about the good, not so happy about the bad. Let's hope the bad is not actually true. But the good news is, should we start with we'll start with the good news first. The good news is we've spoken about it the last few days, of course. It looks very much official that Canelo will fight Terence Crawford September the 13th in Las Vegas. Now, that hasn't really been a big secret for probably the last couple of weeks now. It's been talked about for a long time, of course, and Canelo himself shut it down numerous times. But Crawford always seemed pretty positive about the whole thing. So I suppose in hindsight, it was always going to happen. But the news is that the fight will actually take place at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. Now, if you're not familiar with Allegiant Stadium, it is the home of the Las Vegas Raiders. They had the NRL there last year as well, but it is a magnificent stadium, custom made, state of the art, whatever you might want to call it. It is an unbelievable stadium, to the point where they actually have the grass or the field for the football. They can actually literally pick it up electronically, of course, and move the field outside so that it gets natural light on it. Can you believe that? And they actually spin it around. They've got a couple of fields, so it actually lifts up. They take it outside of the stadium and it ggets natural sunlight, and then they just bring it back inside, and they have a couple of fields that rotate around. That is pretty crazy stuff when you think about it. That is very, very much state of the art. But not just that. I think the crowd attendance taking in there is 65,000 for a football game, and they reckon it could be up to about 75,000 for a boxing event, which is, look, it's great in theory to have that many people at the fights. And I'm sure that if that stadium had been there when Mayweather and Pacquiao fought, that would have been the stadium they would have used 100%, 75,000. You know, why get a 16,000 people gate when you can get a 75,000 people gate with the prices they were charging? But the only downside with it is, and this is with all stadium fights, great in theory, 75,000 people there. I'm sure they'll sell it out, by the way. It'll be a massive, massive fight. The problem is, though, is if you're one of those unfortunate people that sort of get up the back, you can say, hey, I was at the fight, but you're not really at the fight. You can't see shit. You end up watching the whole fight on the screen. We've seen this even in Melbourne with Marvel Stadium. I remember even at Jeff Fennick and Azuma Nelson at Princess Park, the Carlton Football Oval. We had seats sort of a little way back and we couldn't see shit. So that's probably the only downside. Now, maybe a lot of people just want to say I was actually there and, you know, be there for all the build up of the week and, you know, the weigh-ins and all that sort of stuff, and it's great. But geez, I reckon the tickets will probably start at about $1,000. It's a lot of money to pay just to say I was there. But all that aside, I'm being pessimistic, aren't I, about the whole thing. But the fight itself, I think it'll just be great for boxing. I really do. Canelo, Crawford, two superstars, and I think it'll be a real shot in the arm further of what we're getting at the moment. Of course, we're riding the wave at the moment as far as boxing events around the world and the matchups, and that's all, of course, to everyone's favourite boxing guy, Turki Al Sheikh. But yeah, this will be massive, and I think it'll be great for the sport. The bad news with all this, by the way, is that it was also revealed yesterday that his Cinco de Mayo date, which is I think May the 3rd, I think it is, also in Las Vegas could be against Jake Paul. Now, because it was funny yesterday because last couple of days I've been pretty busy. I've been on the road, I've been tending to our business and had a lot going on, so I haven't really checked my phone a lot till I get home. And then yesterday, sort of just after lunch, my phone was sort of ping, 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 ping. And it was people sending me links and questions and everything about the news that Canelo Alvarez could be in line to fight Jake Paul on that Cinco de Mayo date. Now, I don't normally like bringing up Jake Paul or his peanut brother because I just think they're an embarrassment to the sport. I think they take advantage of the sport. I think they milk the sport, and I think they make a mockery of the sport. And I agree with Turki Al-Sheikh, who actually said, as far as these two guys go, that it should be almost branded boxing entertainment or something, some other word, but not boxing, what those guys do. So I think he used the Tyson Jake Paul fight as an example. Call it anything you want, but don't call it a proper boxing match. Call it entertainment, combat sports, whatever it might be. World boxing entertainment, whatever. But don't call it boxing. And this is, unfortunately, does this fall into the same category? I hope it's not true, and I've been a very, very staunch supporter of Canelo Alvarez through a lot of different things, people calling him a ducker and questioning his legacy, all that sort of stuff. But geez, I tell you what, it'd be awfully hard to defend if he fights Jake Paul. I would have thought a Canelo-Jake Paul fight, not that it would probably happen that far down the track, but if it was 5 or 6 years down the track when Canelo's happily retired and wants to do the Mayweather thing or the Pacquiao thing where they've been doing exhibitions, that's great, knock yourself out. As long as you know what you're getting. The people I spoke to, I said, look, I would be staggered if it was true. Because I've always thought Canelo carries himself with a certain level of dignity and respect and morals as far as boxing goes. He has a lot of respect for boxing and its history. So, and more importantly himself. So I thought that would be the reason why he would never entertain something like this. The other thing is, I think he would absolutely, well, literally almost decapitate Jake Paul if they fought. So it's not really much of a challenge for him. I always thought too that Canelo doesn't like circuses. He doesn't like all the bullshit build up. You see him in a lot of the fights when the trash talk starts and all the shenanigans start. He doesn't like to really get involved. He likes to be serious. So I'm not sure whether he would want to involve himself in what would literally be a circus. It really would. No one would take it seriously. He would be getting pumped relentlessly from the reporters and fans and everything about the legitimacy of the fight and how much of a joke it is. And he doesn't take criticism very well, Canelo. So I would think the fact that it would be treated as a joke and a circus, I don't think Canelo would want to subject himself to that. I really don't. So they're the reasons why. And the other thing is, there's no way Jake Paul would actually take a serious fight against Canelo Alvarez. He might have a lot of stipulations and conditions and all that sort of stuff, which again is another point for Canelo. He's not the type of guy that's going to be dictated to. Could you imagine Canelo Alvarez saying, well, we're going to use bigger gloves, less rounds, less minute rounds, clauses in there that you can't do this and you can't do that. This is the reason why I don't think it happens. There's no way I could picture Canelo Alvarez agreeing to any of that sort of stuff unless it was an actual exhibition. So I don't know. I hope it's not true. That's the bad news though. But geez, talk about the yin and yang of a day of boxing news as far as Canelo goes though. Wow, the ups and downs, the roller coaster of that. But the good news is, really looking forward to Crawford Canelo. Bad news, I hope it is just a joke as far as the Canelo and Jake Paul fight goes. But I must admit, in some perverse way, I almost hope the fight does happen so that Canelo can actually unleash on Jake Paul and just actually let him realise what is involved in elite boxing at that level. So anyway, enough of that. I don't even like talking about the clown, to be honest. This is Jake Paul, but still with Las Vegas, June 14, looks like it's Inoue, David Picasso. So we'll get Naoya, excuse me, Naoya the Monster Inoue back in Vegas, and then I think I said yesterday, September we'll be back in Japan, and then December back in Riyadh. maybe against Nick Ball, which would be a ripper, wouldn't it? Nick Ball's, of course, got the fight with TJ Doheny coming up. You wouldn't expect you'd have too many problems with that. I actually spoke to Mike Altamura yesterday too, TJ Doheny's manager, and he's a little bit unsung, is Mike Altamura. Everyone in boxing knows who he is in Australia, but this is the guy that got Kim the fight with Inoue. He's got Doheny a fight with Inoue, and now with Nick Ball. He got Wade Ryan a big fight, I think it was in Russia, just recently. So he's very much the unsung hero to Mike. So a big shout out to Mike Altamura, who doesn't probably get enough accolades in the world of boxing. He takes a lot of people that have, or boxers that have been offloaded by other promoters or discounted or discarded, whatever it might be, and gets them back on their feet and gets them opportunities. So just a quick little shout out to Mike Altamura for that one. What is some other stuff going on at the moment? I've seen that, yesterday, the George Kambosos fight with Jordan has been, well, I'm going to say officially announced. It was a little underwhelming. I expected, the press conference, it still might be coming, by the way, but I did expect a big, some sort of press conference or virtual press conference or something that would announce the fight. And pretty much it was last night on social media. It was just a post saying fight announcement, which is very unlike George. Now, again, I don't know whether something else is coming, but in the scheme of things and the way that George normally likes to roll, not much fanfare. It was just put out. I just happened to be, and I don't really normally get on Facebook too much, unless I'm posting my own stuff for my own businesses or my page or whatever, but it was a Noonan boy put it up for starters. I don't think it was even on Australian Boxing Central. George put it on a couple of his socials, but I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess it's officially announced. George Kambosos, Jordan. I did say he was a 6-time world champion with George. I'm just trying to do the sums, not trying to disparage George, by the way, but what are the belts? So he, obviously WBA, WBO, IBF. The WBC, was that the questionable one? Was that the interim belt or something? I can't remember, but that would be 4 if that is the case. IBO, I suppose, is 5, and I'm assuming the ring counts for number 6. I love the fact they've put it on the poster that it's going to be he's a 6-time world champion. Good for marketing purposes, but yeah, am I right in saying let's just say George is the former undisputed lightweight champion. That's probably the best way to say it. I'm not counting the IBO. And again, at the risk of upsetting everyone, I don't count the ring as an official world title. I still count it as the true guide of who is the world champion, but unfortunately it is not a world title belt, so I don't think we can count that. But look, I'm grasping at straws here. I don't want to take anything away from George because I respect him so much as a fighter and what he's done, but just trying to get my head around the 6-time world champion things. But anyway, all right, so I just had to quickly pause that. Apologies about that. I had a lady come in the other way with a couple of dogs who wanted to stop and have a chat and tell me how cute Neil was. Can't see it myself, but people seem to think he's cute. But anyway, he's a bit of a celebrity around town now, especially because he's gotten out a couple of times and had his face plastered all over Facebook, and people like to stop and say good day and tell him how naughty he is. But no, it's good that especially around here, it's a good community. But anyway, back to the boxing. Anthony Mundine. This year is the 25th anniversary of the debut of the man, and I just wanted to just probably reminisce about this guy, this athlete, and the type of athlete that we might not have seen in the past and maybe not see again in the future. This is a guy who went from rugby league, elite rugby league, so NRL, into world-class boxing and straight into it. No amateur career or anything like that. And I've just got a quick story about Anthony Mundine. 1998, the Commonwealth Games. I was fortunate enough to be on the team, and on that team was Justin Crawford and Danny Green, of all people, were on that team. And I remember guys in the team talk, especially the guys from New South Wales and Queensland, they were all rugby guys, and they were all talking about this Anthony Mundine. Have you heard that Anthony Mundine might be going to boxing? And I'd never heard of Anthony Mundine, had no idea who he was. Not a rugby man, I'm a Victorian. I'm AFL through and through. Had no idea who he was. Knew his dad, of course, Tony Mundine. But they were all talking about Anthony Mundine going to professional boxing. And a few of them sort of laughing it off. And I remember Justin Crawford saying, I'd love to, fight Anthony Mundine, and I'm going to be the one that put my hand up. And then it was Danny Green who actually said, no, I'm going to be the one that shuts him up, and I can't wait to fight him. And which was interesting because Danny was actually from Western Australia, so I'm not quite sure how he knew who he was, but I don't know whether he'd done some training in New South Wales or Sydney, whatever it might have been. But there was this little bit of a tit for tat between Justin Crawford and Danny Green about who was going to be the one to shut the man up. And who would have thought that 8 years later, Danny Green would get his shot at Anthony Mundine, would fall short, of course, but it would be the biggest fight in Australian boxing history. Because I remember, I think what it was all about is because Anthony Mundine at the time said pretty much all Australian boxers were chumps, and he could take any of them right now. And I think that's what got those guys a little bit upset. But it's amazing to think that 2 years later, he did announce officially he was going to boxing and made his debut in July, I think, June or July of 2000 it was. And I still remember the press conference. I think he had the lollipop in his mouth and really made a splash. And I remember thinking, geez, I'm not sure I'm a fan of this guy, but geez, you've got to give him respect for the crowd. I mean, it was a massive press conference, and the night of his fight, it was probably one of the biggest crowds in Australian boxing, and it was just his first professional fight. Now, he fought a guy named Jared Zos, I remember, and got him out of there in 4 rounds. It wasn't the most remarkable of opponents to come up against, but who has a pro debut against someone that's actually going to give them trouble? So Anthony did everything he was supposed to do. He rolled up in the limousine, I remember, and everyone was there, all the celebrities, all the rugby players are all there for him, and he got the job done. And who would have thought he had 10 fights up his sleeves. He fought for the world title in his 11th fight, but in his first 10 fights, he fought the likes of Ian McLeod, Mark Bajero, Guy Waters, Sam Solomon. These are all established pros. Now, Guy Waters had fought for a world title. I know he was way past his peak, but he'd fought Dennis Andrews for the WBC title earlier in his career. Sam Solomon, of course, was a future world champion. They would fight 3 times. He would beat Sam 3 times. But at that time, he was an established pro and former kickboxer, Sam. And Anthony fought him in like his 7th or 8th fight, I think it was, and got the win over him there. Come on, buddy. And and then he would fight Sven Odke in his 11th fight. He would get stopped, but Sven Odke, even at the time, 24-0 he was. I think it was the IBF belt. Just massive props to Anthony Mundine to go to Germany to fight Sven Odke, who was, I think he might have been a former world champion, amateur as well. So a very, very good fighter. Come on, man. I don't know what you're doing there. And then, of course, he would go on to many, many big fights and be one of Australia's best ever boxers. But I think definitely probably our best athlete that we've had. Now, I suppose we will never know because a lot of athletes never crossed over into other sports, but the fact that he actually did cross over and got the results that he did to be we call them seniors here in senior player in AFL. I think they first graders or something they call them in NRL. Either way, a top line NRL player and then to cross over into the boxing world and have multiple world title fights and some of the biggest fights Australia's ever seen, including, I think, up until his last couple, every single fight that he'd had in his career was a pay-per-view, right from his first ever fight, right up until his last couple, a pay-per-view, all pay-per-views. So this is a truly remarkable guy. I actually saw him up at the Jai Pattaya, and David Nyika have been up there and still looks like he's in pretty good nick. And he is, of course, doing the exhibition, the Fight for Cancer in Tasmania on Tassie Brown show down there. So all the best for that one, raising money. So again, just wanted to give a quick shout out to Anthony Mundine, who, as I said, turned pro nearly 25 years ago. All right, guys, that's going to do it for today's episode. I hope you have a great hump day, and we will catch you tomorrow.